Hello, this is Nicko with Food Cravings, and today we're making Chinese sausage fried rice. I'm going to show you my take on this easy yet popular Chinese dish. For this recipe, you'll need 2 eggs and 3 sausages. You can find these sausages at your local Asian market. Finding these types of sausages shouldn't really be a problem these days, since there are many Asian markets around. Another thing we'll need is 2 cups of short grain rice. You could also use jasmine rice or basmati rice for this. For a healthier version, you can also use brown rice, but I didn't. This also works well with leftover rice, but I decided to go with the short grain rice. We're also going to need 1 or 2 scallions. I chose to go with 1. And some cooking wine. A little tip here. You don't want to go and buy something that's labeled cooking wine. If you can't find cooking wine, you can go with dry sherry or white wine. Just make sure you use something drinkable. And here I have a scallion, which I'm going to slice really fine. And while you do this, it's important to be using a sharp knife, but you want to tuck in your fingers like I did, moving them backwards as you slice forward, while still gripping the scallion. Here I'm slicing the white part. This is the part that's used in stir fry first. It usually goes in with the meat while it's softened as you stir fry. Technically, the green parts are used for garnish. Once our onion is sliced, we're going to move on to our sausage. Here you want to start slicing vertically down the middle. The sausage has a tough casing, so you want to go ahead and use a sharp knife for this. No biggie. Now we just continue dicing until everything is done and set it aside. And here I was slowly and steadily building a sausage pile. And I kept dicing and dicing and dicing until I was eventually finished. And now on to the rice. Here, since I didn't want the kernels to stick together, I decided to give it a quick rinse a few times, swishing it around with my fingers like so. And you want to do that and dump the water. The water will turn milky white, don't panic. Fill it up again in the pot, re-rinse until it runs clean like so. Now that all the starch is off the rice, we're going to refill the water, then cover it, and let it boil. Once it's done boiling, we're going to simmer. Set that aside. Now we're going to give the eggs the beating of their lives, vigorously whisking, making sure that they're frothy. This will help them fluff up while cooking. Now let's check on the rice. Here you can see the bubbles forming, it's simmering away nicely. And I decided to give it a stir a few times, and then covered it to let it finish cooking. Now it's time to prep the wok. You can use a pan for this, but I feel using a wok is more authentic. We start by adding some oil around in a circular motion so that it all falls to the center on high heat to make sure it's nice and smoky. Now we add the egg, and I decided to wait a few seconds before flipping. Here I went in with my offset spatula in an attempt to redistribute the runny parts, letting it set until solid, and then flipping again until golden brown underneath. Once I decided that was to my desired consistency, I set it aside. Now it was time to re-drizzle some oil onto the wok, at which time I dumped in the sausage. Then I picked up the wok and kept it moving, flipping everything around. After all, this is Chinese cooking. Here's another pro tip. When working with high heat, especially when stir frying, it's important to keep everything moving so that it doesn't burn. And I added the onions, then picked up the wok again and decided to give it a whirl. It was time to give everything another toss. Next, I decided to shift all the items around using my offset spatula. And it was time to add the cooking wine. Then I decided to continue tossing and patting and tossing and patting. And I kinda just let it sit there while contemplating my next move. At which time I decided to walk and roll, baby. Chef Nicko style. Another moment shortly passed, at which time I decided to add in the eggs, which I diced. Then I decided to give them a toss. By doing so, it helps incorporate all the flavors together. Here I decided to sprinkle on some soy sauce and toss in some garlic as well. Then it was time to add in, you guessed it, the rice. And I did so by scraping the bottom and the sides using the spatula, making sure all the kernels were deposited into the wok. Then I decided to continue scraping and scraping until all of the rice was finally out of the pot. After giving it a final scrape, I let everything kind of just sit there for a minute before adding the butter. Then I picked up my spatula under and over and decided to give it another toss. Then I decided it needed another random series of tosses and pats until the butter was all melted, and I went under and over and under and over again until I decided I had enough. At the time I realized this kind of patting gets addicting, so I finally set down the spatula and walked away for a bit. On my quest for soy sauce, I came back with a little drizzle, to which I added in a little salt. And I know you're thinking that's probably a lot of salt, but the rice will absorb it. Then I hit it with a little bit of cracked black pepper and some more sprinkles of salt. Then I decided it was time to give it another toss, so I did. And it's important to remember that when dealing with high heat and cooking in a wok, your objective is to keep everything from burning. So it's important to give it a series of tosses while cooking, during each time you add a new ingredient. And finally, our fried rice is done. Now it was time to dish it into a bowl, and I used another bowl to transfer it in. Once everything was transferred, instinctively at this time I gave it one last pat to settle the rice, and now it was time to go in for a taste, as I always do. But first, a sprinkling of sesame seeds. I always thought it gives it a nice accent this way. At first bite you will be truly amazed at the flavor combination of the scallion, egg, rich buttery flavor of the rice, and sausage. So go ahead and give this a try. I hope you've enjoyed today's recipe for Chinese sausage fried rice. If you've enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe. This is Chef Nicko with Food Cravings. For ingredient amounts and more info, don't forget to visit www.chefnicko.blogspot.com. Thank you. Bon appetit.